I need to do a recording about the fundamental difference between wild plants, wild foods, and those that have been farmed or cultivated or genetically modified or forced on in any way at all. The thing that my attention's being drawn to just at the moment is about power plants. Riki and I were just talking about the hippie movement and how it was the drug use that stopped the good work that was intended to do, because people were starting to awaken, they were starting to realise more truth. But the plants were all being abused, the smoking, the acid use, the LSD, all of these things. We've not understood that the medicine plants that shamans used to use were wild plants. They were wild, they were free, they were living their life as they were meant to, those plants. And as soon as we take those plants out of that natural environment, when we start forcing them, when we start choosing ourselves where those plants are seeded, where those plants grow, when we put all those plants in a line, when we germinate all those seeds at the same time, when we start to enforce our will over the will of that seed, of that seedling, of that plant, we are taking it out of its sovereignty. We are taking it away from its path as the being that plant is. I know that's going to sound stupid to a lot of people, but I'm hoping some people will understand where I'm coming from with this, because it's important. We're all eating foods that have been farmed. Even if it's organically farmed, it still isn't carrying the same vibration as wild plants carry, because there is still the degrees of our manipulation over how that plant will grow. If we are forcing it to grow up a pole, if we are forcing it to grow along vine lines, we are putting our will onto that plant. So we aren't allowing that plant to grow in its own power. A lot of this is just kind of coming to me at this moment, so I might end up just speaking as I feel things out, because I feel like it is all right for us to grow things, but we shouldn't be enforcing too much on the plants. It's very important for us not to be crippling them, and if we are growing them, it needs to be with respect and with a relationship with the plant, almost like asking its permission, are you all right with me planting you here? And trying to get some kind of psychic or instinctual feedback as to whether that is all right. It's like we need to honour these plants. Just like when we eat, we need to be grateful for what the plants, what Mother Earth has given to us. We need to start living with much, much more awareness and respect for the life and the godness in everything. And when I say God, I'm not saying a masculine energy. I'm talking about source. I'm talking about all that is.
Yeah, as soon as you get addicted to certain things or foods, nature things,
the respect is gone.
And that's a great sign, to tell you that you're going a bit too far of something when you've lost that respect. I remember when I started eating some meat again, and like the first couple of times it was like, I really need to respect this, because obviously having been a vegan or vegetarian or whatever for a while, it was a big thing to be eating a chicken, and I was very grateful that first time, but then I was eating it a few days after that, and then I found that I was losing the respect, and there was other energy around me more that was
And I
You know,
feel
it
like
doesn't
that
care.
other energy will come in very strongly when we are living unconsciously, when we are not respecting, because we are out of our truth and we are out of our real vibration. When that happens, we aren't living by our truth and our wisdom and our reverence for all other life, because we are disrespecting God at those times. Whenever we have disrespect or disregard for any other person, for any other creature, for any plant, for the stones even, when we have disrespect, we are disrespecting Source, because everything is Source. And ultimately we are disrespecting ourselves, which is causing soul wounds in us as well. We're not understanding enough, as the species that we are, that if we are not living in reverence to all life, we are also not living with respect for ourselves too, and we are intrinsically causing damage to ourselves by living in those unconscious and disrespectful ways. And this isn't, I mean, that can sound like a very serious and sober and, you know, very down kind of way of living, but it isn't, because if you are living with love and respect for all things, you will actually be living in a state of bliss. If you are actually taking that to its full level, you are living in such a state of beauty and bliss then, because you are feeling whether the tree is happy for you to take its apple, and you feel a love connection with the tree, you feel a love connection with the branch, the leaves, the apple that you take, and you feel so deeply, deeply nurtured by that food, because it is in right relationship. It's in right relationship with the tree, with the earth that's grown the tree, with the sun that's helped the tree grow, with Source energy, with Mother Earth energy. You know, you are living in line with that, and that is so deeply beautiful. And like, I'm aware of this, but I'm not living it. You know, on a day-to-day basis, I feel like I'm a million miles away from the depths of this truth, and I want to be in that truth. I want to be at one. I want to be at one with all of these plants, with all of the animals, with Source energy, with my fellow human beings. And I feel like ultimately that is the state of being in heaven on earth, because when we are all living with that respect, you know, when we are all respecting each other, when we are all respecting the earth, we're not going to cause abuses, we're not going to hurt each other, we're not going to damage each other, we're not going to damage ourselves, we're not going to be living in states of addiction and abuse and violating other people's rights. You know, we aren't going to do any of those things, because it's so far removed from our truth. If we are living our truth, it doesn't even enter the radar.
That is our natural state.
That's what I was just about to say as well, because that is why it is so deeply difficult for us when we incarnate onto the earth plane, because most of us are coming from a place of our understanding being truth and mutual respect, and like just deep sense of that. You know, it's like it would seem as alien to be unkind to another person as it would to us to hack our own wrist off. You know, it's like we would no more contemplate hacking our own wrist off here and now, as in that state of being we would contemplate being unkind or dismissing or being contemptuous to somebody else. It's like these things would just not even enter our sphere, and they would seem absolutely horrific. And I do genuinely feel that is why so many of us find it so difficult when we're living an earth incarnation, because our truth knows truth. You know, it knows truth, it knows beauty, it knows that we deeply love everything. And then we come in and it's like it's such a rude, I was going to say awakening, but it's not an awakening, it's the opposite. It's such a rude nightmare to us to realise the vibrations on this planet and how everybody has been led into treating each other because nobody is born into this like this. They're really not. I don't believe that any baby is born hating. You know, I really don't. You know, I don't know where I stand yet on the idea of like past lives. But as a soul, as a spirit, that child is not coming in hating unless it's been severely traumatized and damaged while it was in the womb. You know, that's the only way I can see that a child or a soul will be coming into this world in a very bad way. Because otherwise we're coming from a place of pure unconditional love and beauty. And that is why it's so powerful when you're around small children and babies, because they're fresh, they're untouched. Unless, as I say, they've been severely traumatised through the birth process itself or whilst they've been in the womb. And sadly that damage can occur because if the parents are unconscious, if the child has been conceived during rape or abuse or things like that, a lot of damage can be caused, like right from the word go, for those poor unfortunate souls. But in general, most children are born in a state where they still have access to that beautiful unconditional love, and ideally the mother will be in that state when she gives birth as well, because it's a time that's very powerful for mothers and fathers when their child is born. It can often be the rare time, it might be the only time in someone's life where they actually feel that absolutely overwhelming love and the miracle of this life. So it's a very special time that, you know, so as I'm saying, when we're born into this world, we're carrying that true unconditional love vibration, and it's very difficult for us when we come into the density of the energy on this planet, because things have been corrupted and hurt and tarnished and taken very, very far off path, and most people have been led very far away from their truth and the truth of themselves and their souls. And we are brought into forgetfulness. We are brought into a false reality where it has all been constructed and manufactured to give us a different version of what truth and reality and our history on this planet is. And I mean, that's a massive, massive, massive subject in
The
itself.
authenticity, did you just say that? Did you say authenticity?
I didn't say the word of that.
Yeah, the authenticity is needed to cut through, because anything that's, you know, not being authentic is pushing us out of alignment with our truth, you know. But yeah, I just wanted to say about that stuff to do with plants and that, you know, because it's, you know, we've both felt that recently about, well, for example, like when we had some avocados and we felt that the avocado plant just wasn't happy, you know, it's just being take, and it's twisting.
We're forcing these plants, you know, like we lived for a short while near a big like orchard apple and pear plantation in Kent, and it was horrendous sort of seeing how these poor trees had been forced, you know, they'd been stunted, they'd been twisted to go along poles and paths and everything, and it felt so deeply wrong that. And
we're taught to accept it, and all the desensitization through movies and media and that makes us walk around not really realizing, but this is part of awakening. We're more sensitive.
Yeah.
You know, it's not that we're moaning about everything, it's just that we're sensitive to the good things
when you
and
realise the atrocity, you know, it's like years ago they believed that babies couldn't feel, and like children, I can't remember what age it was up to, but they were actually like operated on, cut open without any anaesthetic or anything, because it was believed at that time that babies couldn't feel. And like we could look back at that now and like how horrendous and despicable that is. And at some point in our evolutionary process, we are going to realise how horrendous our treatment of animals has been, farm animals, the slaughter process at one level. But we're also going to come on as we develop, as we understand more, and as we realise our deep kinship with every single living creature and being on this planet. We're going to realise how horrendous our treatment of plants has been as well, our treatment of trees.
That's the thing. They're not happy, and if you are empathic, and we're both very sensitive, me and Katie, and we could feel it straight away. You know, and there's a sadness in the body. You know, and I had to try and find the roots of that sadness. I thought, well, is that me? You know, and it wasn't like an addiction. I just had a avocado. You know, but it was blatantly the energy was that the spirit of the plant is not happy, and it's not
happy
feeling
the
in
way that
balance.
it's been treated.
The thing is, if any object or any thing or any body mass of energy gets out of its alignment or becomes corrupted or becomes controlled by something else, then loses its purity, which is what's happening with the avocados, for instance, or different foods that we are really taking too much advantage of and trying to force it into our own way. Any plants that end up like that,
the energy is twisted.
Astrally, in the astral realm, even though in the physical realm, we might be like, oh, this is a perfect looking, genetically modified apple here or whatever. In our reality, yes, it looks on the outside like it's, really good. But
spiritually, it can be twisted and rotten.
Spiritually is what you're doing when you eat, and we need to be aware spiritually when we eat that's what that is, and we're pulling that energy into us,
We're eating and taking damaged and traumatized
energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that's exacerbating the damage and the trauma within our own systems because it's not whole.
Because you eat stuff that's not cared about, and you have this feeling of not cared about in your body.
Yeah.
Then the world seems like a more crueler place,
It's all we're not understanding how deeply linked all of these things are.
We're all affected by energy, all of us, every human on this planet, and that's what we're learning at the moment, to be energy workers and realise what is good for us, what's not good for us, how to transmute energy, how to move forward and get into our proper divine path, I'm
going to have to leave it there because we've got somebody coming to check the water. That's a bit annoying because
Why is he here now?
Yeah, that'll be what the car door slamming was, I just realised. I just want to say quickly, I've been aware recently of like the gardens in this area and people just ripping out plants, burning plants immediately, like pulling them straight up, throwing them straight on fires, and like it's been feeling really bad to me. And I think it is that, like, I'm sensing the trauma of the soul of those plants because I've been sending out my love and like my apologies on behalf of the humans that are doing these things, but these things really matter. How we are treating other things is creating the enslavement on this planet as well, because while we don't love and respect other beings, we aren't going to receive that love and respect properly back ourselves, and we will be treated as a farm animal too, which is what is happening.
This is why all our choices fundamentally matter at the moment on the planet and what we choose to do.
Yeah, so living with consciousness and with love and compassion is so deeply important. Thank you.